The Chiefs are 1-0, and as satisfying as that is for the fans, I think we've reached a point where outcomes are seen with a longer view. What did we see in Jacksonville that will aid the Chiefs in their Super Bowl quest? Star columnists Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian have thoughts on this idea. And later the group weighs in on the college football weekend where things went as planned for Kansas State and Missouri, not so much for KU and Les Miles. All this on SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast, sponsored by Big O Tires. I'm your host, Blair Kirchhoff, and it's Tuesday, September 10th. Vahe and Sam are here, and guys, after months of off-season team activities, mini camps, training camp, preseason games, we finally have a Chiefs result to discuss. And it wasn't bad. For the Chiefs. I mean, look, there have been plenty of years where an opening game victory would have been, especially on the road, would have been party time for the Chiefs. I mean, right? I mean, just wild celebration. I find it interesting that after the Chiefs won at Jacksonville on Sunday, 40-26, kind of picked it apart a little bit. You know, the defense gave up some yards, and Dustin Colquitt got on the field. But no, I think a good first result for the Chiefs, and really not much to pick apart, although that's not going to stop us from doing it. Do you guys agree?
Which part? That we're going to pick it apart?
Good First result for the Chiefs. In fact, I don't know how it could have gone much better given what expectations were for, especially on the defensive side.
And look, think about this too. I mean, I think you pointed it out in your game story, or certainly we've talked about it, but I mean, they scored 30 points after Tyreek Hill's out of the game, and I guess still scored four times in a row, including the very next play after Patrick Mahomes got hurt. And it wasn't a 40-26 game, really, right? I mean, those was two late scores in a row by Jacksonville, just one. But the Chiefs were basically 3 touchdowns ahead for most of the second half.
3 scores ahead.
3 scores ahead,
yep.
Yeah, 3 scores ahead, and that's what it felt like. And the defense did contribute to that, as Sam got into really well on Sunday for Monday too. So why wouldn't you feel good about this? And sure, it's not a finished product, but that's not the nature of this.
You know, entering the game, I just kind of thought Jacksonville's defense was up for the task, especially after last year holding Mahomes to the numbers that he had, season low passer rating and no touchdowns for the first time. Well, he kind of took care of that early. Got that one off the board.
Yeah, it's unbelievable when you think about the fact that they had Tyreek Hill for basically 2 series. Is that about right?
I think that's right.
And their quarterback kind of playing on 1.5 legs, sort of. And that is a good defense. They've got tough, proud, talented guys at every level. And they got punked. And not just that, but they got punked again a year after what the Chiefs did to the Jags here, and which was actually statistically perhaps Mahomes' worst game of the season last year, because he only threw for like 310 and I think no touchdowns. If I remember right, it's the only game.
And 2 picks.
Yeah, the only game where he didn't throw a touchdown, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
But they still, and they were right too. The Jaguars after that game were talking about, they beat us like we stole something, and we've never been punked like that before. And I just thought with an off season, and I know he got hurt, but there was some juice around that team with Nick Foles. I thought that had the potential to be a lot tougher game than it seemed like a lot of people in Kansas City were expecting, and it just wasn't. It absolutely just wasn't.
Well, just one side note real quick that I was pretty focused on this Sunday. We all were talking about it on what Patrick did after he was hurt, but almost to the point where it blinded me a little bit to how really easy and almost unbelievably easy he made it look in that before he got hurt.
Yeah.
And a stat that I hadn't realized during the game, he threw for the second most yards in the first quarter in NFL history.
Yeah, it looked fake. Just how easy it was. Like it's just.
It did.
The NFL's supposed to be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Against air is what Glenn Mason used to call that. We couldn't do this against air.
Yeah.
It was like he was throwing against air.
And Blair, just to underline the point that you made in the open there, I was and you were there too, right? The 2013 game. And
At Jacksonville.
And that had been in my head like for a few weeks. To me, there's just something symbolic about that of beginning this season, the same place where Andy Reid's first season after 2012 began. And that 2013 game, I think it was 28-2, if I remember right.
It was.
Was the final. And those guys came just literally dancing into the locker room and singing and all. I mean, it was a party. Sunday in Jacksonville, that was a business. That was a business trip. Like they were smiling, they were happy, but there was no celebration in there. Like it was professional. It was like exactly what we expected. That was sort of the vibe that I got in that locker room. It was vastly different.
All about context too, right? And it was, and anybody that's listening would I'm sure that if they missed it would love to read your story from Sunday about the journey from there to here.
How bad it was, yeah.
But circling back again to Blair's first point, I mean, that year that was half as many wins as they had the whole entire season before.
Right. That's right.
And a lot of holdovers. I mean, some change was already happening, but a lot of people that had really suffered through that. So I think we understand the trajectory. The goal is different. I mean, I'm sure every year you have the goal of reaching the Super Bowl, but it wasn't really, I think, anything anybody was thinking about in game one of Andy Reid's tenure.
Yeah,
now I think it's all anybody's thinking about. I mean, to the degree you do in the back of your mind when you're focused on playing.
Yeah, and I think it changes the way that people like us and people like the people who are listening to this think of the team in that, I look at the defense, for instance, and they gave up 22 of 25 completions to Gardner Minshew, who is now a career 88% NFL passer.
Set the NFL record for a first-time starter in completion percentage.
I bet he did. That seemed rare when it was happening.
As it was unfolding. First 13
was something in itself. Yeah.
But like, it's what's different about this. Like, I don't know ever. And look, the Chiefs have had good teams. The Chiefs have teams that you expected to win the division, expected to be in the playoffs, all that stuff. But I don't remember a Chiefs season where I have so totally looked at it through the lens of, I don't care what it is now. Are there signs of what it can be in January? And so a defense that gives all that up, I still looked at it like, you know what? I felt like their tackling was a little more solid. The corners got burned bad, and there was a lot of miscommunication there. But to me, again, I'm thinking about new system and new coaches and all that stuff, and that stuff will continue to get better. I don't remember thinking that way. Like last year was just this weekly magic trick with Patrick Mahomes, and it was like, can you believe he did that again? And now it's like, well, let's project toward January. It's one reason why the Tyreek Hill injury is sort of like, well, as long as he's healthy in January.
Yeah, and also along those lines, you've been saying this all along, but I think it's really true that you can't exactly expect this defense to be whatever it's going to become for certainly weeks, right? I mean, it's just the nature of the beast when you've got 8 guys starting that didn't start last year and obviously an entire new scheme and defensive coordinator. But it was interesting that you looked at all angles of this, but one of the points you made the other day was just how some of the fundamental points, were looking a little different, right? The angles on tackling, the tackling itself, and things like that. And you got to figure the rest legitimately is a matter of communication and gelling and getting to know each other, so that those are things you would expect to take shape better as the season goes.
Yeah, I looked at that like if that's as good as the defense is in January, it's not good enough. But there were some fundamental points like again, the tackling. Last year, one of the memories I have, other than the safeties just being completely lost, is linebackers just whiffing tackle after tackle, arm tackle after arm tackle between 2 and 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And so a 4-yard run is a 9-yard run or a 15-yard run or whatever. And Leonard Fournette, who is a bad man, just did not. I think they averaged about 5 yards a carry, but didn't get really loose.
And he had to earn those yards, right? I mean, it wasn't just a lot of whiffing and running through people, right? I mean, he was carrying people a little bit, but.
I know we talked about this after the game in Jacksonville, but if there's one play that sticks out to me, it's that Damian Wilson, just coming down like clear on a play that the 2018 Chiefs got killed on dozens of times. Damian Wilson closes on that 3rd and 2, and you made this point, Blair, about even if he didn't strip it, that tackle was made before the sticks.
They were going to have to make a decision on whether to go for it on fourth down.
Yeah, but he did strip it. And that was quick and that was aggressive. That was a play that didn't happen last year. Leonard Fournette has never lost a fumble in his career before. And then the offense, and Vahe, you made this point too about like that was the offense's longest drive right after that.
Yeah.
You know, they and some of that's coincidence or whatever.
Right.
Like, but still, they made that count. They absolutely made that count and drove it down their throats. That was just a really big moment that I don't think we saw much of last year.
One thing I can't. You have such a better memory than I do, and so does Blair. What was the play at Denver last year? There was a run at Denver where I think 5 guys missed somebody going in the end zone on like a 12-yard run.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there was some kind of special exclamation point at the end. I can't quite remember what it was, but where maybe just ran over somebody for good measure at the end. I can't quite place the play, but I remember thinking that was the one that sort of spoke to it all.
It was left to right. It was on, as we were looking at it, it was on the right side of toward the right corner of oh my God. Yeah. That was bad.
I'll see if I can get my research staff to look that play up while we go on here.
The play that you're describing, the Damian Wilson play, Sam, was, if there was a turning point in the game, it was that.
Absolutely.
Because it was a 10-point game with the Jaguars clearly in field goal range. If they don't pick up the first down, they kick the field goal and make it a one-possession game.
Yeah.
And here are the Chiefs who have scored on every possession, because they scored on their first 7 in the game, which I'm still stunned by that idea against that defense.
Yeah.
In those conditions.
Totally.
It would still have been a game. I thought that was the second pivotal moment of the game, and the first one was actually the Nick Foles touchdown pass, because he was injured on the play. Mm-hmm. Just think about the sequence of events that started that. Mahomes misses wide open Travis Kelce in the end zone because he's not looking at Kelce, and as we find out on Monday from Andy Reid, there was a method to the madness here. He was trying to freeze, underneath coverage, and I don't know if that's Andy Reid taking Mahomes off the hook. He doesn't need to do that, but I've gone back and looked at it, and I think there's a case to be made that there was a reason for Mahomes. He wasn't trying to create his first highlight moment of he already had, right, the previous series on the touchdown pass. But anyway, so they settle for the field goal there to make it 10-0. And then the Jaguars march down and get the touchdown and make it 10-7. And I'm thinking, okay, we know what we're going to talk about now. Mahomes with his no-look, whiff, and Jacksonville almost like insulted by that sort of thing, are going to come down and assert themselves. And well, Foles gets hurt on the play by Chris Jones, and the Chiefs don't stop scoring. They I can't remember exactly what they did on the next possession, but they don't stop. Oh, it was the Watkins second touchdown pass. So
the 49-yarder.
They made it 7. Yeah. They make it 17-7. So maybe that's kind of doesn't matter what happens to the Chiefs, because this offense always has the ability to make something good occur. Let's talk. Go ahead.
Well, I was just like sort of to that point. It sounds like a shticky thing to say, like a joke, but I mean this sincerely. That Patrick Mahomes is the Chiefs' best defensive player because he puts so much pressure on the other side. It completely changes.
What do you think the Jacksonville defensive rooms are looking like? Today, with seeing Travis Kelce just wide open and the missed tackles, and they have got to be furious about what they saw in that game.
And some of the meltdown stuff happening with Jacksonville, just whether it was taunting or the basically fisticuffs, all that was just another version of something we saw so much last year. How many times did you see a pass completed and the defender just kind of getting up, shaking his head?
All the time.
Just obvious body language of exasperation. Mm-hmm. This was a different form of it out of a team that tends to, be a little chippy anyway.
Play to the edge.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So, but that's part of what your point is. I mean, about the Mahomes effect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what you do to the whole other team.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it from their point of view, and again, I have to imagine they put a lot of emotion and pride into preparing for this game. See, not just season opener, but what happened last year. And you think you have a certain way that this is going to go, and you're playing physical and you're doing all these things, and it just doesn't matter. In some ways I get it, to be that frustrated. It's like the old, the Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Everybody's got a plan until the Chiefs go 68 yards in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, especially with the guy that really hadn't had that kind of play, certainly as a Chief and in some years, right? So that's got to be another part of it. Like, we thought maybe we could cover Kelsey and Hill and things would work out okay, but Sammy Watkins can do this.
Yeah, and now Hill's even out. So that should be that should be good for us.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second. Hill goes out late in the first quarter on. Listen, Jalen Ramsey was the one who tackled him. I didn't think it was I think it was a good play.
I thought it was a really hard, really clean tackle. Yeah.
Yep. Not unlike what Chris Jones applied to Nick Foles.
I'm with you on that. A thing though that kind of put an asterisk next to it for me was just the attempted extra shove or at the end, right? Which was, I'm only replaying this in my mind. I can't fully reel it in, but Tyreek was obviously already hurt at that stage.
Yeah, so, unbeknownst
to him, and anybody
but him.
But it still was, I don't know, it just was cheap. And it stays with me as part of that play.
I'm curious, did you watch it again? Did you watch the replay of it?
Just in the immediate. I didn't watch it again later.
It looked to me, I thought the same thing live, like, oh, God, that's really bad. But it looked like he was Ramsey was walking kind of between Hill, who was on his knees or maybe on all fours, whatever, kind of on the ground, and Cam Irving, who was standing there. And it looked like him and Cam Irving, I don't know who shoved who first, but it sort of looked like, and obviously Cam Irving is a much bigger man than Jalen Ramsey, kind of pushed him, not dirty, but just kind of pushed him, and Ramsey sort of jumped back a little bit, and that might have been the contact with Hill. So anyway, it looked to me really dirty live, but then when I watched it again, I was like, okay, maybe.
Yeah, I should watch it again.
I don't know.
Good point.
So Hill's out for what we don't think is 8 weeks, which would have been an IR stint. If Tyreek Hill had been placed on the injured reserve list, he would not have been able to return until week 9.
Yeah. Now that the Chiefs have elected not to put a guy on IR before and had him miss more than 8 games. As recently as last season.
You got to go all the way back to 2018.
But they do, at least as of last night, we're recording this on Tuesday. At least as of last night, they were optimistic that this would not be an IR situation, and there's no timetable defined as of late last night. But that is positive news. That is, I don't want to get into medical terms any more than what I'll just say now. But I got a text from a neighbor who's a doctor who said that she was just geeking out, like nerdy medical geeking out on this injury because it's super rare and can be potentially life-threatening, she said. So the Chiefs kind of dodged one here.
Well, when Rick Burkhalter came to the podium after the game, he mentioned that if it occurs this way, then you need surgery, I guess, medical attention. And I thought for someone who kind of got up holding his shoulder, collarbone area, that struck me as being potentially really bad. But apparently it's not. It wasn't the worst news, and in here on Tuesday, it's not the worst. I think we'll find out by the end of this week. What the Chiefs' plan for Tyreek Hill is.
One thing that comes to mind as we think about this, and I'd be curious to know how you guys see it. Last year, the situation with Eric Berry last year, when they kept referring to day-to-day, that became week-to-week and month-to-month.
On a day-to-day
basis. How much of that was actually the Chiefs didn't know, and how much was gamesmanship? I suspect it's the former. In this case, and it's early into this case, I would assume whatever's happening is with the full understanding of the Chiefs. But I do wonder about last year, how much it's just the Chiefs didn't know.
I got the sense that they didn't know and they were very frustrated by it. Because at some point, and this point was not in November or whatever, this point was early, where it was up to the player. It was up to Eric.
In his camp. I just remember thinking they were the ones calling the shots on this. And don't you remember... So he makes his season debut against the Chargers in a primetime game. I want to say it was a Thursday night game, and it was at night. And after the game, it was the first time we had an opportunity to talk to Eric Berry since training camp, and he That was the interview where he said his spirit was advising him, or words to that effect.
That he could have played the week before, but his spirit wasn't into it, something like that. Yeah.
And I thought, wow. What does that mean? And where was he? What was he trying to say with that? And I that gave me the idea that and Andy Reid will do anything and everything to protect his guys.
Right.
Sure.
And I thought, as I reflect on it, I think that's what Andy Reid was doing all of last season when it came to Aaron.
Yeah, I think that's well said, because something just never added up. And the reason it never added up was that nobody was going to be fully candid about whatever the complications were. And to this day, we don't really know, right? I mean, other than that he's not playing. Yeah.
And it was one of the weird things, how that went about. This was somewhat of a good break for the Chiefs, is that if he was hurt the whole year, that contract was guaranteed. The contract was guaranteed for injury. But the fact that he played 90 snaps or whatever it was against the Patriots, he's no longer hurt, and that's why they could cut him and get out of that money. So, it's a little bit of a break there. It's just a crazy situation all around there. Now with Tyreek, you wouldn't think, you wouldn't think that situation last year with Barry would happen ever. But with Tyreek, it doesn't, at least right now, they seem pretty optimistic that terrible injury, really bad, with potentially very serious consequences, but that they've dodged the worst of it.
And again, we're days into this, and that started off, we were a month into that before that even got weird. Right, or 3 weeks into that before that even got weird. Right. So I, there's no reason to think they're going to be really parallel situations.
Yeah. This also explains why we see Tyreek Hill, as he when he on a reception or a return, dart out of bounds. Often darts out of bounds.
Often accelerating.
Yes. There is absolutely no reason for a player of his stature, and I mean that both physical stature and where he is as a player in the NFL, to lower his shoulder and barrel into someone and be tough. He did a little bit of that as a rookie, and don't do that, And this was on a clean tackle where he got thrown a little bit. His body shifted to a way where where he landed awkwardly to do the damage that it did.
Hey, speaking of that, we didn't really get to talk about this very much, and part of it is how Patrick goes into it. But the play that preceded Patrick getting hurt, he really was pretty vulnerable and stayed up again a little longer, I think, than he did. Sort of slide, but he was up a little longer than you would have liked. And as I recall, it wasn't an option. It was sort of a design run around right end, wasn't it? I mean, I don't think he was forced out of the pocket. I just wonder what the point of doing that is, other than to say, well, sometimes this guy can run. And obviously he'll have to scramble, et cetera, here and there. But I don't like seeing that. I don't like seeing him made in any way more vulnerable than he should be.
Absolutely not. I agree 100%. Don't run. Don't run. Take the field goal. Always with him, live to fight another down and another series.
Yeah.
Don't leave yourself open for that type of potential, real damaging hit.
Yeah.
So, look, before I wanted to say this because I don't think we've mentioned his name either on the post-game Facebook Live or any of the coverage of the game. But on that play where Mahomes was hurt and there was the fracas in the end zone between all the Jaguars and the Chiefs, Eric Fisher made a really nice play. Mm-hmm. Mahomes fumbled the ball, and it was Fisher who fell on it, alertly fell on it, as he did. Was it in the Baltimore game, the Ravens game last year?
It was, correct.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Saved the game.
Yeah, I mean, so as Romeo Crennel would say, cadoos to
many cadoos,
to Eric Fisher,
and whatever the opposite of cadoos is to me, because I was talking to Eric Fisher and meant to ask him about it Sunday, then forgot and started talking to somebody else because it was a good thing to ask him about, being that alert, right, when you're doing so many other things.
Right. Did you guys watch the Raiders
Broncos last night? I saw some of it.
Yeah.
I saw the early going.
Early going was impressive by the home team.
Yeah, and it ended up 24-17?
24-16. And we'll talk more about this game on Thursday at our Facebook Live from Big O Tires in Kansas City. But I just wanted to get any kind of early impressions. It was 14-0 at halftime. To pitch a shutout in a half of an NFL game these days is pretty impressive.
Yeah, Joe Flacco or not.
And look, and
Super
especially
Bowl winning quarterback Joe Flacco.
that's right. And especially look with the chaos that's been surrounding them.
Right.
I think that was different than I expected that game to play out, or certainly even to start out.
Yeah, it was ends up being an impressive victory for the Raiders, and that's where the Chiefs head. We will spend some time Thursday, and Vahe, I'm actually looking forward to a pregame Facebook Live from the field at Oakland's Alameda County Coliseum on Sunday, because it will be the last time that the Chiefs ever play in that stadium. So with that, let's take a break, and we'll be right back to talk some college football after this.
Save big on the biggest brand tires. Where else? You're participating Big O Tires. Now through September 22nd, get up to $70 off select sets of Michelin and BF Goodrich brand tires. Plus, get up to an additional $120 in mail-in rebates on qualifying purchases using your Big O Tires credit card. Only at Big O Tires, the team you trust. Not valid with other offers. Disposal fees extra. Up to 10% shop fee based on non-discounted retail price. Not to exceed $35 where permitted. For the store nearest you, go to bigotires.com.
Hey, it's Blair. Hey, we have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns we have to offer. And it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. For your convenience, your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. A lot of subscription services won't tell you that. They'll just sneak it on there. We just told you. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star. Please visit kansascity.com/sportsbeatkc offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. We're back with Sam and Vahe. We're going to talk some college football. Guys, we were in the Jacksonville airport waiting for Sam McDowell to land, and Sam Mellinger called up ESPN Plus on his phone, and we were kind of tapped into the final few minutes of Kansas 12-7 loss to Coastal Carolina. And I got to say, I was a little bit surprised by the outcome. Maybe I shouldn't have been. Maybe I shouldn't have been. But as we talked about later, we'd had, since Les Miles was hired, which was right after the 2018 season, David Beatty had been, it had been announced that he was no longer the coach, and then Les Miles came aboard pretty quickly. He's had 10 months of pretty good publicity and that opportunity for Kansas fans to feel good about the direction of the program. Was it all undone in one loss?
I don't think so. And I think we've all been conscious of the long game here for Les, right? I mean, what are the recruiting implications of his first few months? And they seem to be pretty good. I think we actually said this last week. You might have to check me on this, Sam. But I remember we thought that was a game the week before that they would have lost a year ago.
Right, the Indiana State game.
Right, the Indiana State game. But I think we also thought it's not just going to be an upward trajectory. It's going to be a pendulum swinging back and forth. And as much as that game opens up the idea that you don't have to lose, finding a way to always come through in these situations is another matter. So I don't feel like it undoes it, but I feel like it reminds you of where they are. And as our friend Joe Waljasper wrote off the Missouri-West Virginia game, looking forward to his big takeaway from that game was the Kansas-West Virginia game later.
That's right, because West Virginia got smashed by the Tigers on Saturday. Sam, I guess you could, if it seems like headline writers, copy editors are always looking for that right verb, Jayhawks lose, Jayhawks run over. This one, I think we found a new one.
We sure did.
this time, and we could say that KU was pinataed by Coastal Carolina.
They sure were, literally and figuratively. They were pinated. For anybody that might not understand what we're talking about, there was just an incredible video posted that at least I saw on Twitter of a actual pinata, Jayhawk pinata, that went down at the hands of a crutch.
That was the best.
Two swings from a crutch, and that pinata was done.
Beheaded.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the first swing took the body, the second swing took the head. I thought, it is a marathon, right? With less, but part of the reason that you hire the guy with a big national championship ring, which he has been known to wear,
yes,
from time to time, is that it's not just the recruiting bump, but that is probably the most important part. But a guy who has been, forget about national championship, but just been a Power 5 coach for as long as Les has, you don't expect them to need to go through 3 timeouts. I know one of them was Coastal Carolinas, but 3 timeouts to do a puka up the middle that everybody knows is coming. There's just little stuff like that. The offense seems straight out of the 1960s, and that was one of the criticisms of the hire, is that he's not creative enough offensively for this day and age, and he said all the right things publicly. I'm learned from that and all that, blah blah blah, but it doesn't look like it. And I know again, the roster is not close to where it needs to be, but they do have a stud running back, and they've got 2 really good receivers, and you would like to have some creativity to be able to let those guys shine a little bit more. Like 7 points against Coastal, a Sun Belt team that,
after scoring on the first possession. So I think Kansas scored on the first possession of that game and then did not score again.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it doesn't mean that Les Miles is going to be a failure at KU. I'm not saying that, but it is really discouraging. Not just the loss, and not just the idea that they will now likely be double-digit underdogs in every game that they play, with the possible exception of West Virginia. But West Virginia is a Power 5 school, and Coastal Carolina is not. So take that for what it's worth. But it's just the way, the disorganization, and sort of the lack of creativity, the inability to kind of come up with, not answers necessarily, but just tweaks, changes. Right. That part of it is really, really discouraging.
And they got a big break late in that game too. Didn't Coastal miss a 20? It
was a short one.
Yard field goal.
Yeah, I think it was like 28, something like that. That
would have made it a 2-score.
Yep.
Or at least a 15-7 edge. So KU got a break and wasn't team enough to take advantage.
They were not
of that. So Kansas fans are this week where Missouri fans were previous week.
That's right.
Just angry and upset. The bar is much, much higher at Missouri. But the Tigers found a way to, they didn't find a way, they just stomped West Virginia.
Yeah.
And I think West Virginia confirmed our preseason feeling that it was going to be a difficult transition year for Neil Brown, their new head coach, who came from Troy. But Missouri needed to have, I think, a convincing victory over the Mountaineers, and that game was over pretty soon, pretty early.
It was, and you're right. They needed it. I think they kind of needed it to be that way. And it matters less the statement they make to others than they make to themselves, right? And I think they have every reason to sort of be back in whatever optimistic mode they were before the silly Wyoming loss, which really, in hindsight, is I can't remember. Wyoming struggled a bit last weekend, didn't they?
Gosh, I don't remember.
I thought I saw that.
But I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
If they did. But you look back on that Missouri-Wyoming game, it was almost impossible for Missouri to lose that game with Kelly Bryant throwing for 420-something yards, and just the bad breaks that Missouri got in that game. And look, they lost. I mean, scoreboard is the ultimate truth here. But
the question was, coming out of that game, how much of that stuff is, for lack of a better term, fixable stuff, right? And I know Kelly Bryant had that was his only bad judgment, that interception, but also he probably got better, right?
Right, correct.
And I think you come away from that game feeling like whatever factors undid them against Wyoming don't have to be their identity.
And not a theme, right? Not a theme that they carried, that they're going to carry beyond. And I think they have, is it SEMO this week?
SEMO this week, and then South Carolina as part of the 5-game homestand.
Yes, so that's the one we're kind of pointing at for kind of the makeup game for the loss to Wyoming, if it can result in a more focused team against some of their more difficult opponents, starting with South Carolina.
And I would think we'd like to see that be an early in the day kind of game where we might have a chance to have some extra coverage there.
All about us. I think the game time has been announced. I thought it was announced yesterday. Maybe
was it? I didn't see it yet.
Mid-afternoon.
Okay.
3 o'clock-ish. I want to say.
So sort of a tweener.
Yep.
But
I think.
Yeah, I'm looking again now.
Please do. Well, before we sign off, we'll make sure we have that corrected. But so that leaves Kansas State. Well, their fan base have the similar feeling of Missouri fans in Week 1, KU fans in Week 2. The Wildcats traveled to Mississippi State, ranked team. It is the marquee non-conference game for the Wildcats and the biggest test for the new coach Chris Kleiman. He is an underdog for the first time this season, but boy, they've been impressive the first couple of weeks and took care of business in a way that Kansas and Missouri have not taken care of business.
Yeah. First, Wyoming beat Texas State 23-14 in Week 2. Well, Blair, we talked about this in Jacksonville, and Nichols is a good FCS team for whatever that's worth. Bowling Green is a bad FBS team. But when you play teams that you're better than, that you're stronger than, that you're more talented than, you're supposed to beat them 101-14. I think that's the cumulative score. Yep. So I don't know what there is to take from Bowling Green, other than Skylar Thompson was efficient and terrific in that game in a way that he really wasn't asked to be against Nichols. But I think all you can take is just they're doing what they should be doing if they're kind of a bowl caliber team. And I'm not going to be discouraged by anything that happens in Starkville other than just if they get Nicholsed, Or
like what happened to them against Mississippi State in Manhattan last year, where Mississippi State just asserted its dominance. I think it was 31-10 the final.
It was man against boys.
It really was,
yeah.
And which was surprising to me because we had seen Kansas State stand up to every opponent it had ever played under Bill Snyder. You just didn't, except Oklahoma seemed to always have Snyder's number. But I can remember Auburn coming in a few years earlier and Kansas, that game going down to a final series, and any of the non-conference opponents, the big ones that Kansas State have played, they didn't get pushed around, and they got pushed around.
Yeah, that was bad. And Starkville, has a reputation for being a tough place to play and all that. It's the most talented team that Chris Kleiman has coached against. Right? I think we can say that. But it's not a game that I'm expecting K-State to win. That was always going to be a tough game, no matter who the coach is. But, you go down there and you compete. If Skylar Thompson shows a little bit, if they, like you said, if they stand up a little bit at the line of scrimmage, I'm going to be encouraged. Like, with K-State, the first two opponents overmatched, not quite the other way here, but K-State will be a deserved, I'm sure they're a 10-point underdog or 7, something like that, I would assume. And, I think we're going to have a better idea of what they are 2, 3, 4 games into the conference schedule. But it will be nice to see them against an SEC school, right. a legitimate, not just a 6-6 bowl team, but a potential 8-4 or whatever. It'll be interesting, but I don't need them to win that game to feel like Chris Kleiman is on the right track.
As Kellis Robinette, who covers K-State for us in the Wichita Eagle, said, it's one of the rare occasions where Chris Kleiman's an underdog because he just,
that's right.
Beat the bejesus out of everybody at North Dakota State, except when he, early when they'd have their big non-conference game against an Iowa or a Kansas State or Iowa State or whoever, and then he'd find a way to win that game. So at least he's got a little track record of, doing well as an underdog as well. So
7.5 point underdog.
Is that what it is?
I just looked it up.
And we got the Missouri.
Missouri is 3 p.m. on that day. You were correct. Against South Carolina.
Right, and you just can't say in Columbia because you're right both ways. This one's in Columbia, Missouri, as part of the home schedule. So, all right, guys, great stuff. Thanks for stopping by, and we will see you on Thursday at Big O Tires in Kansas City. Links to the stories we discussed can be found in the show notes, and all Chiefs stories are available on kansascity.com, facebook.com/RedZoneExtra, and the Red Zone Extra app. Check out our college coverage in the Star and on kansascity.com. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please take a moment to rate and review SportsBeat KC. We'd love to hear from you, and your review could help us reach more listeners. Thanks to Leah Becerra and Kathy Lou for all they do putting together this podcast, and thanks for listening. We'll be back on Wednesday to talk sports in Kansas City on SportsBeat KC.